We have a wild rumor to unpack on today's episode. But really quickly, my boss, James Yoder, the host of the Michigan Football Report here at Chat Sports, said if we don't get 20 new subscribers before kickoff on Sunday, I've got to wear Michigan gear next week. And while I went to Tennessee, I don't have a huge horse in the race. I do not like Michigan anymore after they gave their signs to South Carolina to help beat Tennessee in 2022. So if you hate the team up north, hit that sub button down below. Let's discuss the wild rumor that Kevin Stefanski could be leaving almost voluntarily. So I came across this article from the Washington Post and its writer Jason La Canfora, who wrote this. Some coaches and executives who know Stefanski think he would be cool getting out of that cesspool now, being home for the holidays, and getting to prepare for future interviews elsewhere. Got a lot to unpack there. One, Jason La Canfora doesn't know shit about fuck. I mean, I don't think he's actually speaking from a place of knowledge or real sources in Cleveland. I think he is just doing well, what's interesting? And if I were in his shoes, what would I do? And you might think that it's not a bad place to get out of town from with the, Deshaun Watson contract and situation and all. But from Stefanski's point of view, I think it's pretty simple. You are one of 32 NFL head coaches. Those jobs do not open up very, very often, 5 or 6 a year. And if you've got one of them, I don't think you are voluntarily leaving that if you are in the middle of your coaching career. Sure, if you're pushing 60, 70 years old, that's obviously a different scenario. But that's not where Stefanski is at right now in his professional career. So I have seen no merit to this idea that Stefanski is all hunky-dory of, if I get fired, cool. I'm not actually all that upset about it. I can hang out at home on Christmas and start preparing for interviews. If I don't get fired, all right, I guess I'll keep this job. No, you have no idea if you're going to get a head coaching gig if you get fired. Don't believe me on that? Go ask Mike Vrabel. He was one of the best coaches, in my opinion, when he got fired. Fast forward a few months later, and he's a consultant. So yeah, I don't think Stefanski is itching to get out of there so he could be a consultant elsewhere possibly next year. He is watching someone do that under his own roof right now with Vrabel. So no, Jason La Canfora, who is kind of a schmuck at this point. He's not an actual insider. He's not breaking news. He's not breaking stories. Don't fall for this borderline clickbait, complete trash story that sources have told him that Stefanski wouldn't mind getting out of that cesspool. It seems like he is just trying to insert himself into a conversation that is not being had. The only possible way I could see Stefanski being okay with being fired is if he is forced to start Deshaun Watson. But that's very different than he is looking for a little bit of a way out. So if we are going to entertain the other side of this argument, it would be this. And I disagree with this, but I am at least going to give you both sides of the story. And there is no question that the Browns' offense under Jameis Winston from weeks 8 to 13 have been much better than weeks 1 through 7. Look at the yards per game, passing yards, rushing yards, touchdowns are up in a smaller sample size, right? In 5 weeks, with a bye week in there, they have scored 13 touchdowns. In the first 7 weeks, they scored 9. There is just no question about it that under Jameis Winston, this offense has been much better. There are 3 examples now of Deshaun Watson's backup just having a better season. And every single one up until Winston was somewhat excusable, or it could be explained at least, right? With Brissett, it was, hey, Deshaun Watson's rusty. He didn't play football for a year and a half. It can make some sense. With Joe Flacco, it was, well, the team was playing well with Watson before he went down, so no one was looking to run him out of town. But with Jameis now, we're looking at similar situations before and after the injury for Watson. Team wasn't playing well before. Team isn't playing all that much better afterwards in terms of wins and losses. But the quarterback play is much better, and the offense is much better. So I just don't see a world where Andrew Berry, for a third straight offseason, can run it back with Deshaun Watson after his backup, his first 3 years in Cleveland, exceeded him. It outperformed him. So no chance the Browns just gift wrap and hand Deshaun Watson QB1 from the start in spring for the first day of OTAs, the first day of minicamp. There's got to be some type of battle going on. My overall thoughts on the entire subject go as follows, though. Things become a little bit murky, though, when it comes to the future of the Browns quarterback position if Jameis Winston does not continue to play at an entertaining level. And there's no viable draft target because the Browns aren't picking top 5. They're not in the Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward race. And after that, there's a big drop-off in legitimate starting prospects for 2025. So you're not going to find a starter in the draft if it's not one of those two guys 9 times out of 10. That's not a good bet to make on the one chance it does happen. And if Jameis isn't playing at a, like I said, entertaining level, and let's just say his game starts to slip a little bit and it goes downhill, well, what do you do other than stick with Watson? I mean, things can change, but just stick with me for a moment here. If we fast forward to January and Jameis Winston's kind of come off his honeymoon, he's come down from throwing for a team, a franchise best 497 yards, and those numbers start to dip a little bit and the interceptions and the turnovers don't go away, I think by then people aren't going to be begging for Winston to come back. Now, of course, if he plays well, then this conversation is moot. But if he does kind of regress a little bit, which in some ways we've already seen, I understand in a lot of ways it's been fun, but I think the people are saying the Jameis Winston experience is fun are people that are not Browns fans, and they just enjoy watching the Browns now because Jameis is a part of it. I feel like for Browns fans, the Jameis experience might sort of run its course if over the next 5 weeks the turnovers don't go away. And sure, on some ways it's entertaining watching his pregame speeches and the touchdown passes. Like, there are a lot of really good moments. But what happens when Jameis isn't throwing to a wide open Jerry Jeudy because the Broncos decided to not put Pat Surtain on Jeudy? Instead, it was 29-year-old Levi Wallace who was getting cooked all game long. Those are the fears that I'm starting to forecast, and I feel like have a decent chance of materializing, but no one wants to acknowledge that right now. And so if that situation pops up where Winston's not riding this honeymoon anymore, and there's no easy draft target because you're not picking top 5, you're sort of only left with one option, Deshaun. So we'll see what happens in the future, obviously. But for now, I feel like this is not a situation that we can say is set in stone, that Winston's going to come back as the starter, undoubted. Before we get on to the rest of today's episode, I do want to give a big shout out to our friends over at Mando. Now, personally, I walk to work most days, and in the Texas heat, it's hot in the summer. Of course, in the winter, with all those layers on, it can get a little chilly. And so then you start to get a bit of a sweat going with your jacket and sweatshirt on. So if you don't want to have, pit stains when you walk into work or to school, and you don't want to smell like a used gym towel, well, visit Mando Whole Body Deodorant. It was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. Mando is offering new customers $5 off their starter pack at shopmando.com with promo code CHAT. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, and free shipping. Luckily, I've got a discount code for the Dog Pound to get you guys hooked up on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code CHAT. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you use code CHAT at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Switching gears a little bit, some other news I want to touch on here. Denzel Ward has been nominated as the Cleveland Browns representation for the NFL's Walter Payton Man of the Year award. It is handed out during the Super Bowl week in New Orleans. Now, some background on Denzel Ward and why he was nominated. He has a foundation called the Make Them Know Your Name Foundation, and what it does is it helps prevent heart-related fatalities by putting AEDs and defibrillators in schools and in public areas to prevent the loss of life in a preventable way. So, congratulations to the warden. This award is one of the most prestigious awards in the NFL, so fingers crossed he can bring it home. But it's second time being nominated. It's awesome to see someone who's been just such a great influence in the local community, someone who's from Northeast Ohio, has played his entire career in the Buckeye State from high school to college to the pros. So let's show the guy some love. Type 21 down below in the comment section. I also think a forgotten part of the Walter Payton Man of the Year award is it's not just purely based on your off-the-field contributions and philanthropic, events and whatnot. It's also about how you perform on the field. And the Warden has been one of the best corners in football this year. He leads the NFL in pass breakups with 19. He recorded his second interception of the year on Monday night, an interception that Jim Schwartz said was one of the best picks he's ever seen just by watching the athletic ability of Denzel Ward to just reach back and snag that football. And on top of it all, why not a forced fumble too? So since joining the NFL in 2018, he is tied for 6 in interceptions amongst all cornerbacks. And I feel like this year he's been close to even getting more than 2. And I could see him converting a couple of those pass breakups into picks down the stretch here. So I would not be surprised if Denzel Ward goes from being tied in 6 with 17 up to maybe tied for 3rd with Dante Jackson from the Pittsburgh Steelers with 19 interceptions. This, in my opinion, has been the Warden's best season, and unfortunately, it's kind of a lost year. He's putting together some of the best work, some of the most availability we've seen out of him. He's played in 12 games so far through 13 weeks, so this is uncharted waters for him as he usually misses 4, maybe 5 games a year. He's on pace right now to complete the entire season, is he not? So it's awesome to see him have a great year. It's just a bummer that it comes in a lost season. Now, some injury news I just want to relay before you guys, jet off into the weekend. A couple of players that did not practice on Thursday, not putting them on a good track to play on Sunday. Cedric Tillman and Sam Kamara are still in concussion protocol. Maurice Hurst is dealing with an ankle injury. And Jed Wills, who missed week 13 and I think week 12 with a knee injury, he also did not practice. And at this point, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw the last snap that Wills played as a Cleveland Brown. Maybe he comes back once he's healthy, but there's a decent chance they just go, we know you're leaving after this season because we know we're not bringing you back, and I don't really know if we're getting much, improved play from you over Jermaine Ifedi at left tackle, so we may have seen the last snap of 71. All right, before we get on out of here, predict the score for me. Browns versus Steelers. Kind of feeling some history. First win in Pittsburgh since 2003. First season series sweep since 1988. All right, that's the year Die Hard came out. Give me the Brownies. I'm going to go Browns 24, Steelers 23. Dustin Hopkins walk-off field goal. That will do it for us on today's episode. Big shout out, as always, to the Brown and Orange Club for supporting us here at the Cleveland Browns Report. Appreciate you guys tuning in ever so frequently and always so often. And a big shout out to the newest member of the club, A1 Eagles fan. We've converted an Eagles fan to being a Browns fan. So either that or just a big fan of the US of A and a bald eagle. But I'm going to go with the other option. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe. Hit that thumbs up button if you have not already. And I'll catch up with everyone later.